Hey everyone, it's Annie with Manor Farms Homestead. So we are slap dab in the middle of preservation season. The garden is at full capacity on production right now. It's July 1st, so that's when here in East Central Alabama all of our garden really starts putting out. So I've been canning and putting stuff up for the last couple of weeks pretty regularly, and it can get super chaotic. So ultimately, I want to point out some pointers on trying to kind of keep things somewhat orderly and trying to maintain your sanity throughout this process and to get as much put up as possible. If you're used to growing your own produce, you realize that this stuff doesn't keep like the grocery store stuff. So certainly there's a lot of preservatives in what you're buying in the store. So whenever you grow your own, you've got that short window to get something done with it, whether it be canning, freezing, dehydrating, freeze drying. Those are some of your options. Yesterday we put up 2 pressure canners full of kernel corn from my dad. The week before that we had put our sweet corn as corn on the cob up. So what I had left yesterday after I put 2 pressure canners full of corn up was some more corn. And I wanted to utilize that in something else today besides just canned kernel corn. And I did get creative with what I made yesterday. I made some Mexican kernel corn with some peppers and Mexican seasoning. So that was something different, something that we will definitely use. So today we decided to make black bean and corn salsa because we do have tomatoes that I picked a couple of days ago that needed to be used. So my husband's working on getting those tomatoes ready right now. So the good thing about making recipes like salsa or spaghetti sauce, you can utilize a lot of your harvest in one recipe where you're able to preserve multiple items without having to individually preserve those, which can be really time consuming. So I do like stuff like this. So let's get into the kitchen and see what's going on. So we've got Evie and Nate in here working on getting our tomatoes peeled. This is one of the ways that I save time on canning. A lot of people will blanch their tomatoes to get that, or not really blanch, but drop their tomatoes into boiling hot water just for 30 seconds to a minute to get the skins to split and then slide it out. I find that the tomatoes tend to get mushy that way. So what we have always done, or not always done, but what we do now, we put them under the broiler just in, yeah, I see that, just until that top blisters and the skin splits. And it also gives your tomatoes a little bit of a roasted taste, so a little bit more flavor there.
All right, this one's yours. I'll be back in mine.
Now don't attempt pulling them off until they cool just a little bit. It's really too hot to handle right this second. So he's now moved that next tray up under the broil, and that takes just probably a couple of minutes under the broiler to get the skin where you want it. That's definitely a time saver when you're processing tomatoes. So in addition to all the tomatoes that we have, we also have plenty of onions. If you watched our onion video, we have lots of onions that need to be preserved, and salsa is a great way to preserve those. We also have an abundance of peppers, both bell peppers and jalapenos right now. So we're going to be using those in our salsa as well. Again, like I said earlier, utilizing multiple different vegetables in one recipe is a great way to work a little bit less in getting all of your produce preserved. What I'm planning on doing is taking these peppers, de-seeding them, minus the jalapenos. I'm going to leave the seeds in those. But I'm going to roast these just to give us a little bit of extra charred, roasted flavor. So when you're prepping your tomatoes to go into the oven, you know, not all tomatoes are perfect and beautiful like the ones you buy in the store when you grow them at home. You mainly just want to go in, core your tomato, cut out any obvious defects or any bad spots, and then just slice it in half. like that. Skin side up into your pan. If you don't have any bad spots on it, I just cut it in half and then take my knife, cut out that little bit of core, and then again, skin side up in your pan. And once you fill your pan up, this goes into the oven under the broiler for just a couple of minutes to get those skins blistered and splitting. And you're ready to pop them out and then do what Nate and Evie are over here doing, getting the skins off of them. So y'all got most of those in the pans. I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Not most of them. We got a whole bucket of tomatoes.
The little cherry tomatoes.
Yeah.
Where are our big knives?
They're all in the dishwasher. Everything is dirty. But these little serrators would work better anyway. Well,
Not for
that,
these.
that's for the tomatoes. Evie, you can throw this one in the oven.
What are you doing with all of your
Scraps.
Yeah.
Put them in this bucket beside me.
What is your
These are ready to go in the oven.
oven?
They'll be ready in like 3 minutes.
time?
And
Put the
then,
timer on them for 3 minutes.
and then you'll have to start peeling them.
You want to go ahead and start cutting these bell peppers in half. I'm gonna go ahead and get these tomatoes into our big pot on the stove to start getting everything set up for the salsa. I'm just gonna roast these off. Just like that. The jalapenos, all you have to do is cut the ends off of those and split them in half. You don't have to de-seed them or anything. So these tomatoes, I'm going to go through and actually kind of chunk up into salsa size stuff. All right, so I've been just kind of chunking up some of our tomatoes in here. We've got some yellow, some red, a few that were kind of immature, slightly green. So we'll have a nice color variety in our salsa, which will be really nice. I'm gonna take the rest of these just because this is becoming really time consuming, and I'm gonna just give them a quick blend in our Ninja to chop them up. I'm not gonna puree them, but just kind of a rough chop with the Ninja. So what I'm doing with tomatoes in the Ninja, I'm just pulsing them like twice. I did 3 times on the first one. That was a little bit more pureed than what I want. So I just want it to be kind of chunky. So we're just gonna pulse it twice. That's it. And then this will go into our pot. This is going to be a lot of salsa.
Yeah, I see that. Well, I said you should make some Bloody Mary mix.
We'll make the Bloody Mary mix in the near future. So I'm just, he's emptied me another tray in here. Some of these I will probably just go ahead and chunk up because I do want some chunkiness in our salsa. I just don't want to have to sit here and do this with all of the tomatoes. So I'll take a few that look pretty firm and just cut those into kind of coarse chunks. A little piece of skin that got missed. Ooh, that's hot. Hot. So my tomatoes didn't do that great this year. My yellow ones did better than my red ones. I do have some late tomatoes coming on. Hopefully those do well. A lot of these that were better tomatoes my dad raised. And with some in the future with my late tomatoes, I'm hoping to do some Bloody Mary mix. So we were talking about things that require tomatoes that we do use around here some. I made ketchup last year, which was cool. I made tomato soup, which was nice. Definitely spaghetti sauce. And definitely salsa. I didn't make enough salsa last year because we went through all of the red salsa that I made. Also, I didn't have a lot of the tomatillos last year, so we went through all of the salsa verde. I think we're probably good on salsa verde this year. I've made 2 big batches of that because my tomatillos have done excellent this year. All right, so we're gonna puree the rest of this. And then we've got a few more jalapenos that we're gonna get roasted. We're gonna start working on our onions and our garlic, getting that chopped up. And then adding our corn, our beans, our salt, seasonings, vinegar, lemon juice, all of that good stuff. All right, we are almost done with the tomatoes. Elizabeth's working on our last pan. Right now, we're looking at probably about 2.5 gallons of tomatoes by volume here. We are gonna get pretty close to 3 gallons of tomatoes once we get this last pan from Elizabeth. So she's over here getting all the skins off of these cherry tomatoes. And then we won't bother chunking those up or anything. They're just gonna go in as little cherry tomatoes. We've got Nate. He's taking the skins off of our bell peppers.
He's trying to. These are just going in this pile.
I think these will come off, those. Yeah, the skin's coming off the jalapenos. So we're gonna try to get all of the skin off of our peppers. Now what I'm doing over at my station is cutting up onions. Now, some of these onions I'm dicing, and then some will go into the Ninja. I want some chunks in the salsa, but I also want some finer pieces. So we'll do probably about 1/4 chunky onions like this, and then the remaining ones we'll put over into the Ninja.
I get some of them off, but
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you kind of pinch them in the center, it'll peel a little bit, but it's not completely coming off.
yeah, that's,
It's okay.
yeah, we'll just leave.
I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it, but these peel pretty good. I think they just needed maybe a little bit more time.
Oh, these are black.
Okay, get those out. Those should peel easily then if they're black. They're charred on the outside. That'll peel right off.
Yeah, let me put them back in the oven.
Yeah, I think that they will all come off with just a little bit more time. Put them under the broiler for just a couple of minutes. Get them charry on the top, and it should.
Because look at these.
Should slide
That'll
off.
come right off. That part.
I'm also going to do several different types of onions. We're going to do yellow, white, and red in our salsa. So this salsa that we're doing today is pretty tedious. The salsa that I normally make, I just put everything into my Ninja blender, and it's really quick, and it's something that I can water bath can as opposed to having to pressure can because it's very acidic. What we're doing today is just something different, to have, you know, a little something different on our pantry shelves, because we do buy black bean and corn salsa, so it's something that we thought would be nice to have. And we do have the corn, the fresh corn, and we wanted to do something different with that. So that's why we're doing this today. It's a lot more work than just regular salsa, definitely, but I think it'll be worthwhile. Also with the peppers that we do, I'll plan on rough chopping some of those, and then the Ninja for some of those as well. Kind of the same way we're doing our onions.
Yeah, these jalapenos.
They're peeling?
Yeah.
Good. So some of these onions have a little bit of bad in the center. These were the ones that we grew. It's been about a month and a half since we harvested them. They're all sweet onions, so short day sweet onions, so they don't keep forever. So it is important that we go ahead and start working on utilizing these and or getting them preserved in some way. So this is good use of them today. I'm just cutting out any portions that are bad. That's why it looks like it's taking me forever to chop an onion. Still plenty of good usable onion here. And I think what I'm going to do is just one onion of each color with this rough chop, and then use the Ninja for the rest of them with just some quick pulses. All right, so Nate's finishing up with the peppers. I think they skinned better once we put them back in the oven just a little bit. There's our bucket of peppers, very good. So I think the Ninja did a better job than my rough chop, so that's what I'm going to do with the rest of these. I have just a few more jalapenos in here that we're going to get just slightly pulsed up. Nate is working on the rest of my onions. Like I said, I diced these up, but the remainder of them we're just going to put into quarters and loosely or quickly pulse in the Ninja. To get a little bit finer of an onion so that we have different textures in our salsa. We also have a few cloves of garlic that we're going to put in. My garlic did not do great this year, but I do have some minced garlic from the store that we'll add to this because we need more garlic than what I have available. All right, so I was overly optimistic that all of this was going to fit into my 4-gallon pot, and it's going to have to go into the 5-gallon pot because we are not going to end up being able to get all of this in here once we get our beans and our corn, the rest of the onions, vinegar, and seasoning. So I'm going to go ahead and get this transferred over. So I wish that I had an exact recipe to give you to follow, but that's not really how I cook. I cook with what I have, and basically we are canning all of the tomatoes that we had, all of the peppers that we had, not all of the onions, but some of the onions that we had. My goal was to use up all of my peppers and tomatoes that I had available right now. And then from there we're adding onions and garlic and all our other seasonings based on that. We also had that whole bowl of sweet corn left over that I wanted to use in a salsa, so that's going in. And that was basically my goal for making salsa. After that. So this is the big bowl of corn. There's a few jalapenos in there. Gonna add that. Want to say that's a 3-quart bowl. It's a 4-quart bowl. So that's almost a gallon of corn. These were the leftover jalapenos that we had yesterday when we were canning our corn. We're gonna add that in. They're pretty finely chopped. All of the seeds and veins were left in those for the heat. And then this is the garlic and the onions that Nate finished chopping. I'm gonna give it a rough chop in here.
I was just trying to be Craig.
Get everything cleaned. It's making my eyes water. All right, so this was
Oh, that's pretty heavy.
2.5 cups of black beans that I soaked overnight. Dry black beans. You do not want to use canned black beans. They'll just turn to mush because this is being pressure canned. So these raw black beans will be completely cooked. So I need me a big spoon now. I'm gonna get that and get this stirred up, get this on the stove so it can start heating up. We're gonna bring this to a boil for probably about 20 to 30 minutes. I also still have to season this. So I'm gonna get it moved to the stove, get it stirred up, and then we'll start the seasoning process and the warming process. All right, so we got this big vat of salsa cooking on the stove. I've not seasoned it yet. I've just got it coming up to temperature right now. So I've also broke out my big heavy duty stainless steel spoon so I can get down to the bottom of this and get it stirred. This looks beautiful. And we are going to start getting this all seasoned up. So like I have said before, I don't really use recipes. I just kind of add stuff until it tastes right. One thing with salsa, just to help thicken it up, I do usually use a can of tomato paste. You can also use a can of tomato sauce if you want to as well. I actually don't have any sauce because I have so many tomato products. I really don't use tomato sauce, but I do use paste periodically to thicken tomato products. So that's the only reason we're using that, just kind of as a binder. So additionally, we're gonna add vinegar. Salsa does need acidity. We're gonna start off with about a little over a cup. This is probably about 1.25 cups. We may need to add a little bit more, but we're gonna start there. Again, I cook to taste, not to measurements. This is also gonna need salt, and I'm just gonna be using sea salt. We're gonna start with 2 tablespoons of that. It will probably need more, but that's where we're starting. Also, I'm gonna use some onion powder. We did use a lot of onions in here. This is just for extra flavor. About a tablespoon of that. I'm gonna use garlic powder. Again, we use some garlic, but not as much as I would have liked. A tablespoon of that. I'm going to use some white pepper. And we're just gonna use about a teaspoon of that. We have a lot of green peppers in here. All right, so we're also gonna use some cumin. I'm gonna start off about a teaspoon of cumin. The dishwasher is beeping in the background. It's not happy that we put it on pause. I'm also gonna use lemon juice. Now I would prefer lime juice, but I'm out of lime juice. So we're gonna go with about a 1/2 cup of this to start with. Again, we're gonna taste all of this and see where we're at on our flavor profile before we move forward with adding anything extra.
We have lime juice upstairs.
Did not know that. This will work fine. So we're just slightly over a 1/2 cup there. And I'm going to add some red chili pepper, about a teaspoon of that. Actually, let's do a heaping teaspoon of that. Additionally, to balance out all of the acidity and saltiness in this, and just kind of to bring everything together, we're going to put 3 tablespoons of sugar. This is a 1.5 tablespoon measure, so we're gonna do 2 of these. And as I had said earlier, we really didn't have enough garlic. So I'm going to add some minced garlic from the store. Do about 3 big heaping tablespoons of that. And that's all of my seasoning for this. We're just gonna get this mixed together really nicely and then start taste testing. I've got to get that tomato paste mixed in there well. Tends to want to stay in a big chunk. This is a big vat of salsa. And it's thick, so getting all of this stirred together takes some elbow grease. Now again, we go back to, these are going to be pressure canned. Tomatoes, as long as you add vinegar or lemon juice or something, is acidic enough that it doesn't have to be pressure canned. However, because we have corn and black beans in this, it does have to be pressure canned. We are actually going to do pints of this and pressure can those for an hour and 15 minutes. It's a really gorgeous salsa. A few big chunks that'll kind of break down throughout the canning process. We're going to give this a taste test. Got my spoon that I used for my tomato paste. All right, I don't want to taste any of the raw corn. I just want to taste the actual liquid portion of this. So we're going to go with a whole nother cup of vinegar. We are dealing with a large vat of salsa here, so I mean, I'm not surprised that we needed additional seasoning. I just didn't want to overdo it to begin with and have to deal with a whole wasted vat of something that we can always add to, we can't take away from. All right, again, just over half a cup of lemon or lime juice. And we're headed back for more salt. I'm doing 4 tablespoons because it definitely needed quite a bit more salt to reach what we need it to be at. I think that the spiciness is good. It doesn't need any more pepper. Garlic, onion, all of that's probably good. The main thing was salt and acidity. So we're gonna stir this in and take another taste. All right, so after getting that stirred in and giving it another taste, I still think it needs a little bit more salt, a little bit more acidity, and probably just a little bit more sugar. So we're gonna add that. I'm gonna do the 3 tablespoons more of sugar. And I'm gonna do 2 more tablespoons of salt. We're gonna do another cup of vinegar. It's really full over a cup of vinegar. And a half a cup of lemon juice. Give this another stir. It's definitely thinned down with the addition of the liquids. One of the things that I will add at the end, once we get all our flavor profile like we like it, I'm going to add a little bit of xanthan gum, and that's going to help hold this sauce together cohesively so that you don't have all of your liquids settle out on the bottom of your jars or rise to the top with all of your chunkiness separating. You want to keep it kind of cohesive and together, so the xanthan gum does that. And it's not like cornstarch. It is okay to can with it. It's not going to change any of the flavor profile. It just holds it together nicely. That's pretty good. Our acidity is where it needs to be. probably just a tad more salt and a tad more sugar. So let's go with another tablespoon of salt. And we're gonna go with 3 more tablespoons of sugar. I am gonna add a little bit more cumin because I don't feel like that's coming through very well, and I really do like the flavor of cumin in my salsa. So we got another teaspoon. I think it can handle 2, which would be a total of 1 tablespoon of cumin that we ended up adding to this whole batch of salsa, and we'll see how that blends in. Now, canning this is going to take hours and hours because you're looking at 1 hour and 15 minutes to can 1 full pressure canner. And we're doing pints, so I can do 2 layers, but still that's several cannings of that. Now, if you have, I probably won't want to do more than 2 cannings of this today. So you could put it in the refrigerator, reheat it back up, and can it later if you run out of time in one day to do all of this. Here's a big chunk of jalapeno. But the salsa that I make that doesn't have beans or corn, I will just either freeze it or put it in the refrigerator and then serve it fresh. But this is ultimately gonna have to be cooked. All right, let's taste this one last time, hopefully. I think it's good. Nate, you want to give it a try?
Yep.
Make sure it's up. Here, use the little spoon that I did the, let me get all the cumin off of it. Try that.
Oh, dude, money.
All right.
That's better than the stuff I buy at Aldi.
All right, so that's it.
And I love that.
We're gonna get this up to a boil and then in the meantime, we're gonna start preparing our jars. You don't have to have sanitized jars for pressure canning, but we are gonna use clean, good jars. Make sure you have really good lids for pressure canning. Some of the off-brand lids do not hold up well in a pressure canner. You may be able to use them in a water bath canner, but many times the pressure canner will blow them off of your jars. I've made that mistake. I don't use any off-brand jars, lids in my pressure canner. Water bath canner, okay, but not the pressure canner. So we're gonna make sure we have ball lids on all of our jars. We're gonna start getting those ready, cleaning up our little mess in here, and then we'll be back once we're getting this into the canner. All right, so this is some black bean and corn salsa that we bought at the store. Nate wanted me to taste it, compare it to mine. Of course, this is completed. Mine hasn't cooked down yet. I think mine's better.
It's absolutely better.
One other thing, I did not put cilantro in this. Cilantro does not grow this time of year, but it grows well in the winter, late fall, or yeah, late fall. So I have some here that I've frozen when it was in season that I just blended up and froze. We're gonna go ahead and put this whole pint of frozen cilantro into our salsa. I will retaste to make sure that hasn't changed anything with salt or vinegar or anything like that as it comes up to temperature and defrost down in here. And then we'll go from there. So here's our big chunk of cilantro that's slowly defrosting into our pot. This was just fresh cilantro that added a little bit of, I think I may have added a little lime juice and pureed in the Ninja and then put into those little pint freezer containers so that I would have it during the summertime when I'm making salsa and cilantro is not in season. I'm just continue to get this stirred in and bring it up to a boil. We're also going to be preparing our pressure canner. I have a Presto pressure canner and it calls for 3 quarts of water in the bottom. I also put a splash of white vinegar to help prevent water stains on my jars. So we're going to go ahead and start getting this ready as well, in addition to our jars. Alright, so this has been simmering for probably about 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and add my xanthan gum. Now xanthan gum will gel up really quickly on you, so you want to sprinkle this very lightly over the top. I'm going to probably put in a couple of tablespoons of this, but you've got to go slow with it, otherwise you'll just end up with a lot of big clumps of xanthan gum. Ready to start jarring this up, so you definitely need a canning funnel and a ladle. Always add your hot contents into your jar that's placed on a towel to keep it from shattering the jar. My jars are warm because I did technically sterilize them in the oven, so you don't really have to have sterilized jars for pressure canning, but I chose to go ahead and warm them up and essentially sterilize them in the oven. Once you fill it with about 1 inch of head space at the top, I have just a paper towel that's been moistened with vinegar, and I'll go around and clean the rim. I have my warm lids here in the back, and my rings over here, hand tight on that, and then this will go into your pressure canner. Now, since these are wide mouth pints, I will only be able to get 16 of them into my pressure canner. The regular mouth pints, you can actually fit 18 into your pressure canner, and that's a double stack, so you do need 2 of your trays to do that. So each time I do a new jar, I just try to stir this up a little bit, make sure that all of my heavier stuff isn't sinking to the bottom with just the liquid at the top. We want to get a good mixture throughout each jar of salsa. And these pint jars hold not quite 2 of these big ladles that I have. So I have to be careful on the second one to make sure I only get up to 1 inch of head space. Wipe your rim all the way around. The lids don't have to be boiled or sterilized. Again, we're pressure canning. I get them hot. And then this is going to go over here to our pressure canner. And we're just going to keep on doing this until we fill it up. All right, we've got our first row of pints of the salsa in our pressure canner. like I said, you can actually fit, so as I said before, you can fit one extra jar in there if you're using narrow mouth pints, but with the wide mouth pints, only 8 going. I'm sorry, yeah. So we've got our first layer of pints in our pressure canner. We've got 8 pints in there. We're going to go ahead and add our next tray, and we're going to do another 8 pints. All right, so we've got our pressure canner fully loaded up. We're going to go ahead and get our lid on. These have little arrows that show you where to line it up. And we'll spin this around so I can see the pressure gauge. Once I get that on there, I'm going to go ahead and crank this all the way up to high so that we can start venting steam. Once this starts producing a steady stream of steam, we'll let it vent for 10 minutes, and then we'll cap it with our little Presto canner cap and let the pressure come up to 11 pounds of pressure. Once we reach the pressure that we need to be at, we're going to time this for an hour and 15 minutes. All right, we're back. It's towards the end of the day now. This is the last batch of the salsa that I'm doing today. I still had some left that we just put in the refrigerator. We'll heat back up day after tomorrow when I'm not working and go ahead and get it pressure canned. Our first batch is over here. Second batch has completed its processing time. We're just letting the pressure canner come back down to normal pressure on its own at this point. Once it does that, then we'll get the jars out and put them over here. You should leave your jars alone for about 12-24 hours before you mess with them to make sure they all seal and everything's good with them. All of these have sealed. I did take a peek at them. I haven't been pushing on them or anything like that, but they've all sealed. So we'll get these out, and that's a wrap as far as making the bean and corn salsa. We did taste the final amount that went into the refrigerator that had cooked the longest. It was super good. Of course, the beans needed to cook a little bit longer, which happens in the pressure canner. But other than that, it was very delicious. So I was very pleased at how this turned out.